Imagine being inside a Russian T-90 tank that morning. Your radio crackles, a column of armor rolls forward, and your commander insists Ukraine's skies are undefended. Seconds later, a small robot bursts from a ditch beneath you, carrying enough explosive to rip through heavy composite armor. This is how the first tank was lost, and how panic began to spread. Before we move on, I would like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Why would Ukraine turn off its own radar just as Russian and Chinese troops press forward? At first glance, it looked suicidal, even reckless. Armored convoys and artillery batteries were pouring toward the border, satellites recorded their movement, and American MQ-9B drones picked up entire columns 9 hours before a single shell was fired. The data was clear, hundreds of vehicles massing at assembly points. The logical move would be to light up the air defense grid, track them, and prepare to fire. Instead, Ukraine powered down its radar nets and pulled heavy guns back from their obvious fighting positions. To outside observers, it looked like a retreat. To Russia and China, it looked like an invitation. Imagine the difference in perspective. Inside Russian forward command posts, officers studied electronic warfare charts and saw gaps. No pulses, no tracking signals where they expected constant scanning. A commander convinced that Ukraine had finally lost its edge reported the border sector was blind. He urged the armored spearhead to accelerate before reserves could be shifted. In his mind, silence meant vulnerability. He saw artillery dugouts empty, their camouflage nets removed, and assumed they had been abandoned under stress. His confidence grew with every empty frequency band. South along the Chinese staging area near the river, generals repeated the same interpretation. Radars dormant, air surveillance silent, artillery concealed. It looked like the Ukrainian defense had thinned out under pressure. They suspected fatigue, a collapse in logistics, or perhaps a delayed reaction. What they did not know was that Ukrainian convoys were moving at night, convoy lights masked, radio silence enforced. Trucks carried disguised artillery tubes under tarpaulins, blending with civilian cargo haulers. Instead of driving openly, they hugged low valleys, disappearing into folds of terrain mapped months earlier. Every withdrawal from a visible position was matched by a hidden advance into a pre-selected ambush spot. To the naked eye, the battlefield looked clear, like an open corridor. No radars humming, no surface-to-air missile batteries sticking out of tree lines, no field guns registered in obvious angles. That emptiness became intoxicating for the invaders. More units were pushed forward, commanders reassured by the lack of resistance. Columns picked up pace, engines roaring as tank crews believed they had caught their enemy napping. But the silence was calculated, not careless. Ukraine was betting on psychology. By appearing blind, they lured their opponents into abandoning caution. Tanks advanced in dense formations because they believed detection was impossible. Infantry carriers stacked close behind. Ammunition trucks followed almost bumper to bumper. The invaders believed speed could overwhelm whatever defenses remained. Yet every wheel turn, every clattering track, was pulling them deeper into a designated kill zone. In truth, the radar stations were not switched off permanently. They had been cycled strategically, creating illusions of power loss. Mobile systems were relocated under camouflage, their antennas stowed until the decisive moment. Artillery was never withdrawn to safety. It was repositioned on masked fire bases with preloaded coordinates. Drone operators above, already briefed, watched the invading patterns unfold like pieces on a chessboard. Patience was enforced at every level. Discipline prevented early engagement. 9 hours ticked by under this curtain of silence. Russian and Chinese commanders convinced themselves they were seizing an undefended passage. What they missed was that the radar blackout was bait. Every armored battalion rolling forward was walking into a trap already designed months before, rehearsed, then hidden behind intentional gaps. The corridor wasn't empty, it was primed, and the moment the first mine detonated, they would understand the cost of mistaking silence for weakness. A single explosion ripped through the lead Russian T-90M, its turret propelled skyward in a cloud of black smoke. Within seconds, the armored spearhead stalled, metal grinding against metal as vehicles tried to swerve away from fire. What triggered that instant collapse of momentum was not a random artillery strike, but a hidden system waiting in silence. Along the drainage ditches of the northern advance lane, just 50 meters off the tank tracks, lay 50 box-shaped robots built for one job, carrying anti-tank mines directly under their targets. The machines had been staged hours earlier in shallow dugouts lined with camouflage netting. Each was remote-operated and carried a shaped charge powerful enough to punch through composite armor. They were small, under half a meter high, and their square profiles made them easy to hide in brush along the road cuts. Operators watching from concealed command stations waited until Russian armor passed the point of no return. When the lead battalion crossed the marked line, commands went through secure frequencies, and the robots began to stir. Confident they were in a quiet sector, Russian tank crews drove aggressively. Engines roared as vehicles closed the gaps between them to maintain momentum. The absence of radar signals convinced commanders no tracking systems were active, so caution was abandoned. Infantry carriers hugged close behind, heavy trucks stacked in columns without separation. They were packed tight, wide convoys rolling with little fear. The discipline collapse gave Ukraine the perfect density of targets. As the lead T-90M stormed forward, the first robot surged out of the ditch. Its boxy body tumbled forward on low treads and rammed into the tank's underside. The explosion produced a high-pitched crack, and a jet of molten copper tore through the hull. A fireball lifted the turret into the air before slamming it onto a following vehicle. Dust and shrapnel rained across the convoy, disorienting crews still locked inside their compartments. The panic was immediate. Drivers tried to swerve off the road but collided in the confusion. Some tanks reversed directly into troop carriers behind them. Others fired their smoke grenades blindly, obscuring their own gunners' vision. Meanwhile, more robots shot out from cover, targeting stalled carriers. Each detonation spread chaos further back. The northbound spearhead looked welded together in one long pileup. Then came the artillery. From positions several kilometers away, concealed two S-22 Bodana howitzers locked onto GPS coordinates preloaded long before. Shells guided by precision timing landed one after another, bursting across armored personnel carriers whose passengers had no chance to dismount. The range was exact, the timing relentless. Crews who tried to scatter found every exposed vehicle bracketed by incoming fire. The most devastating blow came when a 152mm round struck an ammunition resupply truck parked beside the road. Its stacks of shells and rockets went up at once. The sympathetic detonation spread across parked fuelers and crates loaded with small arms rounds. The blast was so heavy that villagers in nearby towns felt their walls shudder. Fireballs rolled into the sky, feeding a chain reaction that tore through dozens of vehicles. This was the force that shook entire villages at the edge of the battlefield. The ignition of an entire convoy's worth of ammunition at one point on the road. While Russian columns in the north disintegrated, China's mirrored offensive on the southern shoreline met the same fate. Amphibious craft churned forward across a cold estuary, soldiers packed chest to chest. Above them, Bayraktar drones loitered silently, transmitting coordinates to loitering warmate munitions. One by one, the drones dove. Explosions crippled landing barges, flipping lighter craft sideways and spilling troops into the surf. Mechanical failures mounted as engines caught fire, their black smoke rising over the water. Waves carried overturned vehicles back to shore, stranding hundreds of soldiers in knee-deep water with no cover. It wasn't missiles alone or drones alone that broke the assault. It was silence, patience, and carefully set timing. The moment pressure mounted, the trap closed, and entire formations unraveled. In modern war, numbers matter, but silence, preparation, and deception can break an army faster than bullets.